Hello and welcome to Spy Hard's podcast. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur, taking your message.
Are you?
I am.
Are you writing it down?
Message received.
Have you received it?
I have.
Well, that's you done with the film. Please leave.
Okay, well, see you later. Thanks. Thanks, folks. I'll be back next week.
Well, speaking of, we're back and we're still here celebrating The Spy Who Loved Me. It's the July Who Loved Me, for Pete's sake. There's lots to love, lots to talk about, and we're here with our first interview. Cam, who are we talking to?
We are talking to actor Valerie Leon, who played a hotel clerk in The Spy Who Loved Me, but also the woman who fished Sean Connery out of the sea in Never Say Never Again.
And you're back into our lives. He'd been away for so long. He brought us back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He brought us back. He said never, but he was wrong.
And Valerie saved him.
That's right.
So it's all down to her. And we've been talking about getting Valerie on for what feels like years on the show, and I felt like celebrating The Spy Who Loved Me was the perfect opportunity to make it happen. And just reflect upon this for a second. This is the first time she's ever done a podcast.
Yeah, and actually, as you'll hear in the podcast interview, wasn't actually aware of what a podcast is.
Yeah, and that's not even like a joke. She just hadn't really encountered one, not something she dealt with. So, we did our best to make it as fun an interview as she could have. Hopefully she'll do more afterwards, but we're glad to have been her first. So, without further ado, for the first time ever, here she is, Miss Valerie Leon. This week, folks, we have something truly special for you all. She came for our souls and blood in the mummy's tomb. She chased Peter Sellers around with a whip in revenge of the Pink Panther. She started a whopping 007 carry-on films. And most importantly, she wowed the socks off of 2 James Bonds and us. It's the one and only Valerie Leon. Hello, how are you?
Hello. It's great to see you. Thank you for that introduction.
Oh, I should do them professionally. I think
You
that's
should.
that's all I have.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here to talk about the wonderful work you've done throughout your career, and obviously we'll talk about Bond because spy movies are our bag here on Spy Hard's podcast. But we can't resist a little bit of Pink Panther. Peter Sellers is a firm favorite too. But I want to take us back a little bit before Bond arrived for you. Getting your start in the industry. What was that big first job that got your name about town?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. That's extraordinary. My first big job. Well, I think I've just been amazingly lucky to have been with the 3 main British film series, which Bond, Carry On, and Hammer Horror.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think I can really say, because I did a lot of television before that.
Yep.
But no, the High Karate, of course, 1969 to 1975, the High Karate commercials. That is what elevated me, I think. I mean, it was extraordinary. The power of an aftershave that really wasn't that good to smell, I don't believe.
See, I mean, this is we spoke about this briefly before we hit record about the High Karate adverts. I want to jump into that because if you actually go back and watch a lot of them, there's like Bond theme in there too. There's a lot of there's one particularly where you fall into a bed that falls into the wall, which is taken straight out of You Only Live Twice. There's a lot of fun in those adverts. So how did they come to you, and sort of what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I just went for an audition, as one does, and I met the director. I think it was Terence Donovan. I think he was one of the first directors. I did about 6 commercials. But then, of course, I sort of repeated them, doing, taking fun in TV series and things like that. It was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. I don't know. I've come to a halt there.
It's fine. It's fine. It's also interesting to note because High Karate aftershave is not something available in your local drugstore anymore, that you can at least tell us it smelled terrible.
It didn't have the best smell, that's for sure.
It certainly wouldn't have the effect that the adverts implied that it did on the ladies.
No, but I mean, little boys used to play in playgrounds, emulating the thing. I mean, the stories I've heard about it have been incredible, really. And I mean, yeah, I've been lucky because of the three major film series, Bond, Carry On, and Hammer Horry, and then of course the commercial. So yeah, I'm still here.
Well, let's dive into the riches of those series you just spoke about, and I know that, like, going into The Spy Who Loved Me, not everyone necessarily listening will know this, but you'd already worked with Roger Moore twice before you got onto the set of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Absolutely. An episode of The Saint. There were three of us in bed together, myself, another girl, and Roger, but it was all very innocent. But The Persuaders, I'll never forget The Persuaders, because he actually directed the episode I was in, as well as appearing in it. And he was trying to enlist my help, and I didn't want to have anything to do with this madman that jumped onto my little funny car that I was driving around in promoting soap. And he gave me a completely unscripted kiss, and I just closed my eyes, enjoyed the kiss, opened them, and grinned. And it is forever in my memory.
So your reaction, if you go back and watch that episode of sort of drinking it in, let's call it that, it is a live reaction to you being spontaneously kissed by Roger Moore.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. Never forgotten.
So, with your experience with Roger Moore in those two prior TV episodes, did that have any influence on you getting the Bond role in Spy Who Loved Me?
Absolutely not. The way that came about was I went to Pinewood Studios to meet the producer, Cubby Broccoli, and I told him I didn't want to be killed off. And I ended up with the part of a hotel receptionist. But even as a receptionist, I flew to Sardinia for the filming. I had a dress specially made, and it was great. It was fantastic, and it was lovely to see Roger again.
And what was it sort of like in those scenes playing off of Roger Moore again? Like, you two have a fun little interplay, whether it's the desk or also delivering him a message.
Yes. So what was that question again? Sorry.
You've been flummoxed thinking about the kiss again. We understand.
I was going back in time in my mind. Absolutely.
No, just about having kind of the back and forth with him on set. Like, was it, easy to settle back into that chemistry, finding those moments, basically?
Yes. No, we always got on, and Roger was a joker as well, and he was a lovely man. He really was, and I feel blessed. Yes, The Saint and The Persuaders, and of course The Spy Who Loved Me 3 times. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I was very lucky to work with him so much. Oh, and in fact, briefly, although it wasn't with him, I was in The Wild Geese, but not with him. But he was obviously starring in The Wild Geese. I just was in briefly for a day.
Yeah, your scenes with Richard Harris, right?
That's correct. Yes,
Well, let's get into The Spy Who Loved Me a little bit, and let's talk about one of the biggest Bond movies of all time. And you said you went to Pinewood to audition for Cubby Broccoli. What's that like? Because that's got to be a nerve-wracking process for any actor.
It was fine, actually. It was absolutely fine. I'm thinking more of when I went for the audition. I shouldn't jump, but I'm going to jump. I'm sorry.
Jump away.
I'm jumping away to when I went to meet the producer for Never Say Never Again.
Right.
Because I went dressed in an extraordinary sort of outfit. I can't even remember what it was, but he said, what kind of outfit is that you're wearing? And I said, a Bond girl outfit. And, I'd like to think he got me the job, but, I didn't know the guy from Adam. It was 10 o'clock in the morning in Soho, and I was dressed in obviously this extraordinary way, which got me the job, which was brilliant. And to work with Sean Connery. Well, now I'll tell you a story about Sean Connery. Well, can I jump into bed? No.
Can you jump into bed?
No,
Valerie.
Oh, my God.
And I'm thinking about the best scene. thinking about the best scene with Sean Connery because you know how when you're filming, it takes forever with the lighting and everything.
Mm.
And and in the morning, we had a lovely time in bed actually because it takes so long with all the technical stuff and everything. And he did have a wonderful hairy chest. But in the afternoon, when his wife came to watch the filming, he could not get out of bed quick enough.
First of all, I feel like I need to dig into something you dropped there. You just nonchalantly dropped your preference for a hairy chest, and as someone who understands that preference, thank you for that. I'm sure Bond fans around the world are happy to hear that.
Okay.
But like, I kind of want, because you said something before that actually that jumped out to me when you said about going to meet Cubby Broccoli and saying you didn't want to die. An interesting thing for an an actress to say in the audition process. Was there ever any inclination that a role you would have gotten would have been bigger if you hadn't had said that, or was it more of a case of you were going for sort of the receptionist role that you had in the film?
I didn't know what I was going for.
Mm.
I just knew I was going to meet the producer of the Bond film. And I just said, I don't want to be killed off. I don't know why I said it, but I did. And I got the part of I mean, the fact is, I just feel blessed to have done what I've done
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
still be here talking about it to you both.
Well, you are part of a pantheon of films that will outlive all three of us.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing, and you did it twice. And we'll get to Never Say Never. But let's go to Roger a little bit more, if you pardon the pun. And as you said, you did The Saint, you did Persuaders, you would go on to do Wild Geese as well. Reuniting with him on set in Sardinia, was there much in terms of frivolity? I know Roger Moore was known for throwing a nice party after each day of work. Did you get to go out and about in town with Roger Moore?
I didn't, but there was a party,
Oh.
and which ended up with because we were at that time we were where oh God, I can't remember, but we were ah, sorry about that, can't remember. But anyway, there was this party, and Roger Moore and Cubby Broccoli ended up waiting on us all, and it was great fun, and I do remember that. It was great.
I think I know a little bit more about that one just from hearing it from someone else. Wasn't it to do with the owner of the hotel you were shooting at?
No, it wasn't the hotel. It was
Was he like a local leader or some
it
sort,
was a
something like that?
it was a prince or something. Oh gosh,
Yes.
I should have checked out, shouldn't I?
It's okay.
I
We're
should
not
have
fact
read
checking
everything.
here. We're not fact checking here.
Oh
You got
good.
to go out and get waited on by Roger Moore. Who wouldn't want Roger Moore to turn up with a bottle of Bollinger and some caviar?
Absolutely. He's who told you that story?
Oh, I do my research, Valerie.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm just wondering who you got it from. That was all.
Oh,
That's
I
me
think it
asking
must
the
have.
questions.
Oh no, I'm being interrogated now. Um,
You can't
yeah,
remember.
no, nor can I. I think I'm at the same shoes as you now. I'm on the spot. I know how you feel. Well, here's something that doesn't often get asked because we've spoken to people who've worked with a lot of the Bonds
Yes.
over the years. But you do a scene with Roger Moore, but you also do a scene with Barbara Backers there as well. And again, not someone who really gets spoken about half as much as Roger does. But any sense of working with her on the set of Spy Who Loved Me? Did you get to spend any time with Barbara?
No, I didn't. I'll tell you who I got to spend time with. It was Barbara Carrera on Never Say Never Again,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
because that film, it was not a happy film, I don't believe.
Mm.
You probably might have heard that. And I remember that one night, usually one socializes or one's invited for dinner or something, but I was wandering around with no one to talk to, and I bumped into Barbara, and we just ended up having dinner together. But I don't think Sean was very happy on that movie at all. Um, and and also because we were in the open and there were always crowds around him and everything. And I don't really know why he came back and did it, but He did, and so, and so did I, and I'm very happy to have done so.
Well, I think it's a different thing with Sean, at least from what I've extrapolated over the years. And we've had Barbara Carrera on the show before to talk about it as well, and had her accounts of working with Sean on the film. And it felt like for Sean it seems to have been like a little bit of taking the power back of being Bond, because he felt like he was mistreated during the 60s. But for yourself, you're a working actress. You're in 2 Bond films. That's great. It doesn't matter if one's quote unquote unofficial, as it were. Like to me, they're both James Bond films.
Oh, absolutely, I agree, totally.
Well, I want to ask you just quickly as we get towards the end of Spy Who Loved Me, just any memories you had working with the director Lewis Gilbert.
Only that he was a very, very nice, kind man. I can't say anything more than that. He was charming. Well, I found him charming anyway. I mean, I don't know what anybody else might have said, but I liked him a lot.
And not a lot of like kind of big direction. He was maybe like a more quiet, more subtle director.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair thing to say. Absolutely. I'd never thought of it that way, but yes, perhaps so. But I mean, it was a great film, though, wasn't it? Spy. I mean, great.
Did a great job with it. And
Yeah.
just lastly, I was just curious. We talked a bit about the party, but just any memories you had outside of that party, shooting in Sardinia, because it's a beautiful location.
You know, when I was that age and I was doing all these wonderful things, I was incredibly shy despite my age. Always, I mean, we all have regrets in life. And,
Mm.
I sort of fell into show business and I've been incredibly lucky. But at the time, when I was young and everything, I just didn't relate very much to people, which is terribly sad now. Now I say that, but it was true. So I don't really have any personal memories, no, unfortunately.
It's no, it was. It's interesting that you say that, because it's something that I've noted over the years of speaking to people. Is a lot of fans seem to get the impression that it's like this rollicking party on the set of a Bond film, or any film particularly.
Yep,
But a lot of it is just people working as an actor or a director or a cinematographer, and then you go finish your day and you go home, or you go to the hotel and you rest and get some of your energy back for the next day, because they can be quite the arduous shoots.
absolutely, absolutely. And you can be hanging around, a long time before you're actually, doing your bit. Um, so yes.
Yeah, I remember we talked to Luciana Paluzzi a while back about Thunderball and asked her about shooting in the Bahamas. And it was a very similar story to yours. It was no, it was kind of a, quiet life when I wasn't shooting. It was not the party scene
No,
you might think it might be in the 1960s in the Bahamas.
that's right. It
Yeah.
absolutely wasn't. Like I said, and well, that's life. People have a perceived thought of how things might be, but it's not often the case.
Hmm.
Well, I'll move us on to Never Say Never Again in a second, but one sort of final question about maybe The Spy Who Loved Me as a whole. It was a big film. It was still held up as one of the best Bond films of all time. Did
Amazing.
it have? It is absolutely. Did it have an impact on your career being in that film?
Oh yes, I mean, I think once you're a Bond girl, you know, everyone sort of opens other doors in other directions. I mean, yeah, I just was felt lucky. That's all
Mm,
I can say really. I mean, because I did so much work over during that time, really.
mm.
I went sort of from one thing to another, even if it was little television series or whatever. But you know, but being a Bond girl certainly opens doors and makes people, want you. Frankly, I'm sure the other ladies you've spoken to said the same.
Interestingly, it's actually more of a mixed bag that I've sensed over the years. Some people have found it to be quite, the word's not off-putting, but not as, I don't know, fortunate as you might think sometimes. Like a double-edged sword, perhaps.
Yes, I guess it can be the case. It can be the case.
But let's keep it on Bond. Let's go, a few years later to the 1980s, and Sean Connery, the original James Bond, is coming back as 007 in Never Say Never Again, something that people thought would never
happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're ahead of me on the joke. Thank you,
Yeah.
Valerie. And you mentioned sort of going to the audition in Soho, but were you surprised to sort of get that phone call in the first place to go in for the audition, that that they called you in for another Bond film? Like, because usually they don't repeat actors in Bond films. There's been a couple of examples where they do, but usually they wouldn't.
Yes, I was surprised. But the worst thing was that when I got the part and I was just requested to fly out,
Mm.
and I hadn't even had a costume fitting. And which I thought was very weird. I thought I was going out. I didn't know what I was going to wear or anything. But then it was a kimono, a beautiful kimono they got for me, and they obviously they must have had my height, because everything they gave me fitted. So yeah, it was. Oh, I tell you what, all else happened.
Go on.
No, I've gone back to Spy. I'm sorry, I'm going back to Spy.
Go back to Spy. It's fine. Time is a concept. We can do whatever we like.
Well, it was just that after I arrived in Sardinia, I got bitten on the forehead by a mosquito, and it really, I really got very swollen, and I stayed in my room and I didn't go anywhere until Cubby Broccoli summoned me out and said, "Where's that girl, Valerie Leon?" And I had to sort of say, I mean, I think the nurse gave me some sort of medication or something, but I'm not good with mosquitoes, unfortunately. But anyway, that was just a little by the by that I thought I'd share with you.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think mosquitoes are anyone's friend, but that sounds particularly awful.
Well, I live to tell the tale.
Quite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't show through in the film, so obviously the injection the nurse gave you did quite well.
Yes, absolutely. And you see, and I told Cubby, of course, I didn't want to be killed off. And then Caroline Munro got the great part of, being Naomi, and much larger part.
Quite an explosive exit too.
Absolutely, very explosive.
Yeah. One wonders that perhaps maybe that was what the sort of audition process was about, and that there was a universe in which you were that character instead.
I don't think so.
I don't know. But that's just conjecture. You mentioned costume and that sort of thing, getting to the set of Never Say Never Again. One thing that always stood out to me, and there's a quite an infamous photo of me online wearing a pair of dungarees in honor of Never Say Never Again, without a top on as well. Much like Sean did. I really wanted to be Sean in that photo. But you're of course wearing them first when you're out fishing.
Yes, absolutely. Saving him from death twice.
Quite.
Twice.
Yeah. The other time was remind me.
The fishing time and in bed, because we didn't go to his room. We came to my room.
Mm-hmm.
You've saved James Bond more times than Q has in certain films, by the sounds of it.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Yeah. So, well, I was interested about that sort of dungaree outfit because it's. Firstly, did they let you keep it? Because it's quite the iconic outfit.
No. Not sure when I would have worn it again, but anyway.
I don't know. There could have been a use for it. Who knows? You could go out fishing.
Oh, I could, yes. Actually, funnily enough, my husband, who was a lot older than me, was a TV producer. He actually made me take a couple of fishing lessons before I went to the Bahamas. He said,
"No,
yeah, no, that's true. He did. He said, so you look as if you know what you're doing."
Were they helpful?
Well, I mean, we were filming. I would have got away without the fishing lessons.
It's hardly like when you put on your sort of actor's CV that you could do horse riding when you actually can't. I guess you could mimic fishing a bit better than horse riding.
Possibly.
Well, if it helps, it was very believable.
Thank you.
You got the fishing down, and you hooked yourself a Bond.
I did. Absolutely.
I was also this might be a silly question, and you'll forgive me, Valerie, on this one. But of course, Sean Connery then gets into your dungarees because he hasn't got anything to wear. Was that the same pair of dungarees?
I have no idea. I cannot
Ah,
remember.
I was hoping you could bring it home for me there. It's okay. It's okay.
I think it's highly unlikely. Don't you?
Okay. I think so too, but
Right, exactly.
there is something about me that makes me chuckle inside, thinking they try to get Sean into your size dungarees, and they're just having to sort of squeeze him in. I think that just is quite comical vision to me there.
Right.
Um, but that's jumping off of that and the costuming. Obviously, this is a different production altogether. This isn't Eon. This is McClory Productions. Erwin Kershner's the lead of Never Say Never Again. What was that set like compared to The Spy Who Loved Me? Did it feel different?
Well, uh, we were on location, and did it feel different? I mean, I don't think I was out about to be comparing the two Bond films particularly.
Mm,
Um, it was. I just don't think it was a happy film. That's
mm.
all,
Mm.
which is a shame. But Sean wanted to do it as maybe one last sort of hail and farewell sort of thing to Bond. Um, and I was just grateful to be part of the movie.
Right. And a question I had was like the script for the movie was famously all over the place. You know, it was being rewritten constantly. With your scenes, the material you were given, was it pretty nailed down, or was there some, having to figure it out on set? Was there improv?
I wish I'd checked out my scripts before I did this interview. Um, I think from memory, probably what they gave me stayed put, and perhaps there weren't too many changes. I mean, you can't do a lot with a bed scene, really. It's just sort of a little cameo role, and I know it's great to be remembered for it, but I think that what I did was very much in the script.
Okay, because you and Connery have great chemistry, and it's very playful and fun, and that's not the sort of thing that can be faked. Like it genuinely works really well on screen, and there are many other co-stars I've seen in Connery movies where you don't have that level of chemistry. So I was curious about just kind of the back and forth between the two of you.
Well, oh, that's nice to hear. Um, yes, it was. I think he might have got me drunk beforehand at some point. Now I come
My
to think
word.
about it. I mean, listen, we're going back an awful long time.
There's no judgments here. It's okay.
Okay. Um, no, it was good. Like I said, I mean, he never used his stand-in once, or should I say, his lie-in once in the morning. We had this great morning in bed with everybody, busying round us and with the lighting and everything else. But when Michelin came in the afternoon, he could not get out of bed quick enough.
At least you had that morning together.
I did, yes, I did, and very memorable it was.
Well, and also, there's. I mean, I said at the beginning, you wowed the socks off of two James Bonds, but technically, you had an under the cover scene with both Roger and Sean. So that's quite the accomplishment there.
Oh, yes, you're thinking about the Saint. Well, it was
I am.
yes,
But
yes, yes,
it counts. It
yeah,
counts.
yes, yes. Three of us in bed together, absolutely.
Well, how does I mean, as an actress, those can be quite quite difficult scenes to do. I have to imagine quite uncomfortable at times. How do you navigate that sort of acting that sort of scene?
Well, in those days, it wasn't like it is perhaps today, and it was fine. And in fact, it was most enjoyable from memory.
Say no more. Um, well, I suppose then sort of coming away from Bond a little bit,
Yes.
but you've worked with two of them, and there's also maybe a discussion about Peter Sellers to be had here as well because he played Bond very briefly too. But of the two main Bonds that you work with, who did you have the best time working with?
Roger. Well, I had a soft spot for Roger. I had a very soft spot for Roger. He was such a lovely man. And Oh God, I had this. I'm just thinking because I did a one woman show at one point, and I wrote to Roger saying could I include the kiss, and he wrote a lovely letter back. God, it was just he was just such a nice person, just such a lovely person.
Hmm.
And yeah, and have you seen the latest movie they did about him?
Yes,
Yes.
we had the director on as well a while back. It was a very interesting piece, I found.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? It was great.
Some of those family letters were quite insightful.
Hmm.
Mm. But it does give you a sense of something that I think a lot of Bond fans and movie fans have known a long time, is that Roger Moore was just the kindest of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Um, and just sort of maybe the last touch on Bond before we move on. We talk about you mentioned the most recent documentary, but obviously we have Daniel Craig has just left the arena a couple of years back, and Amazon have now taken over, and they'll be leading the charge going forward.
I got very angry about that. I went on Good Morning Britain.
I saw.
Oh, did you? I got very
saw.
angry about it. I thought it was ridiculous. And anyway, Daniel Craig was killed off, so Bond was dead. Anyway, that's me.
Well, no, that's absolutely fine to have that opinion. But have you had a sort of a time to reflect upon it since Amazon have taken over? What are your thoughts on it now? Obviously, they haven't announced anything of what they're doing with the IP. But how do you feel about it now?
Well, I just thought it was very sad, that that Barbara came to the conclusion it was time to sort of give up on it. And like I said, he died in the last movie, so I think that's how it should have been left, actually. And perhaps it will be. Perhaps it will be. Who knows what Amazon are going to come up with?
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine they will just do a complete restart and have their own vision for what they want to do, but very different from, like the era of the Bond films that you were in, which were, I mean, the ones I grew up with and the ones I love,
Yeah.
where they just kept going. Like the idea was new chapters, but the adventure just keeps going.
That's true. That's true.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Agents, we don't expect you to talk. We expect you to buy a subscription to our Patreon.
Yee. That's right. Over on the Spy Hards Patreon, we're covering all your favorite spy TV shows, as well as popular films from the most iconic secret agent actors of all time.
Cam, why don't you share some intel on our latest assignment?
Scott, in the second episode of the Agents in the Field series, way back 2 years or so ago, we looked at the Paul Newman, Robert Redford classic from 1973, The Sting. Well, we are going to go back in time a little bit more and look at their first ever pairing in the 1969 Western classic, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Is this a film we would jump over a cliff for? We are going to find out.
So accept your mission and help support your favorite spy movie podcast at patreon.com/spyhards.
But before we activate the fourth protocol, let's get back to the spy jigs.
Let's roll us on to Pink Panther, I think.
Pink Panther, yes.
Yeah.
I had to take whipping lessons for my role. And I shall never forget how I don't remember many things. I remember this man's name, Alex Laredo. He turned up at my house one day with a selection of whips. The film company had obviously sent him, so I should know how to, do it, so to speak. And we took all these whips into the garden for me to practice with. And I was actually quite enjoying it. And I looked up, and all the neighbors were peering out of their windows, wondering what earth I was getting up to.
Valerie, you and I have something in common because I also learned how to use a whip.
Oh.
And was practicing in the backyard of my parents' house, and I think the neighbors had a similar thought towards me.
Well, there you go.
It's very satisfying, isn't it, when you are successful at it? You really feel like, oh, I really did something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it was great. And unfortunately, Peter Sellers was ill. Well, no, I don't say unfortunately, actually, because my contract got extended for a while because he was unwell at one point on that movie. So, yeah. But another memorable part, really. So, yeah.
Well, maybe it's a silly question I'm asking, but you've worked with all these great leading men like Sean Connery, Roger Moore, and loads more I could list. But Peter Sellers himself, a master comedian. Pink Panther is a beloved franchise. What was that brief time you got to spend with him on set? What did you glean from him? What was he like to be around?
Well, as I said, he wasn't very well in the
Mm.
movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I literally, I'd get my call to come out and be on set, and we'd do what we had to do. But I didn't really, from memory, I didn't really get to sort of, have any special time with him at all.
I was going to ask someone else that's passed since about working with Blake Edwards, who, just a masterful comedy director. If you had any memories of him.
I can see him in my mind's eye, just sort of looking at me, deciding, is she going to be right for this or not? I don't have any particular memories of him. We're going back, I'd say, a long time. But he was a nice man, though. I liked him. I do remember that he was okay. I have this memory of him sort of checking me over when I was in the black leather and everything, yeah, he was a good man.
And that scene where you're chasing Clouseau around to the whip, you're working with Peter Sellers, who, he may not have been well, but he was one of the all-time great comedy actors, especially at physical comedy. How much kind of planning went into figuring out that scene?
Whew. How much time went into figuring out that scene? You expect me to remember how much time we spent? I mean, you don't want much, do you, really?
To the minute, Valerie. We need it to the minute, please.
I mean,
Well, I suppose you could reinterpret the question. Was it particularly choreographed, or was it more just let's just see how we get on with the whip and take a few shots? Was it more free flowing? I suppose.
1977, isn't that when it was? How old am I now? And you expect me to remember? I don't remember what I did yesterday. Never mind, back to 1977.
I'm just going to point it out, Valerie. That was Cam's question, not Scott's. Just you.
Oh wow!
I'm not saying pick. I'm not saying pick favorites, but
Okay, fair enough.
Well, the only thing that stands out to me, and that the catsuit you wore for it, I mean, it puts Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman to shame, and I note that you also use the whip too. So
Yes.
you've got that. You're Michelle Pfeiffer before she was Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, so you've got that. But did you ever use the whip skills again?
Certainly not on film.
I wasn't expecting that answer, but
I know. I'm not sure where it came from.
It came from a good place. Cam?
Well, I did have a question because you had such a history with the Carry On films.
Yes.
And you're doing, Pink Panther here. Do you have a preference whether you're doing comedy or drama?
Not really. I was always happy to be working, frankly. I mean, most actors are. You just never know where your next job's going to come from. So, no, I was just happy. I was happy and, just thought I was lucky because it's such a tough business, really.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask around that same time period. You mentioned it earlier, but the Wild Geese, just sort of what led to that role?
What led to that role? Perhaps they rang up my agent and asked for me.
Okay.
I don't know what led to that role. It was a very small role. I mean, one day, it was hardly that.
I didn't know this would end up being the roast of Cam, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this, Valerie. Thank you. You've made my day.
I've got to look at my watch. My agent said, "You make sure you just do 45 minutes."
Okay, well, in that case, I'll start to bring us home. Okay. One thing I note that you take part in, and so do we, which is conventions and meeting the fans. And I think that like signings and things like that.
Yeah.
They're great. It's a great way to meet.
It's
fans.
extraordinary. Yeah.
What is it about them that keeps you coming back to them? What are you getting from it?
Money.
You're my favorite person, Valerie. Please don't ever change. This is fantastic. That is the best answer I've ever get to that question. Honestly, I
Really?
can't think of it. Yeah, because it's honest. Like you could say like it's meeting the fans, but there is that too.
Well, dishonest, yes.
All right, okay. I promise to wrap us up, and I'll leave you with a question. Now, this is a final question. We've asked it to every single person that's ever been on the show.
Oh, wow.
So there's no pressure.
Oh, no pressure, no pressure.
But everyone around the world, the millions are listening, and they're all looking at you now. So not too
I
much
don't even
pressure.
know what a podcast is, you know.
You don't?
No.
Well, it's basically like a radio show.
Right.
Put it that way. It's
And it goes on the air.
It goes digitally on the air. You can listen to it whenever you'd like.
All right. Okay. Fine. Very good.
Yeah. There we are.
Very good.
Was
Thank you for that.
the brief summary of podcasts.
Okay.
But this question now is listened to by the millions, and
Oh my God.
I asked them all because we talk about spy movies here on Spy Hards, not just James Bond, but the whole pantheon of spy movies running back to the earliest days of cinema.
Right.
Valerie Leon, we want to know, what is your favorite spy movie of all time?
Well, it's got to be The Spy Who Loved Me. Of course. What else? What did you expect me to say?
Hey, I didn't expect you to pick a film you worked on. I thought you might have a hankering for Hitchcock or something like that. Like I thought there might be some other films you enjoy.
You know, I've never liked films that are horror or have brutality in them, and that's why I liked The Spy Who Loved Me, because it wasn't really, it was a great film to work on.
And I think that sort of leads in beautifully to what you said about sort of Roger having a soft spot for Roger, because he was never a brutal Bond. He was a sort of a gentleman.
He was fantastic. He was great. He was, yeah.
And speaking of fantastic, speaking of great, and speaking of joining me in roasting Cam, Valerie, you've been an absolute star.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been very nice to talk to you both, and thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I'll have to come track you down at a convention in London sometime soon, and we'll meet in person.
Okay, where are you based?
I'm in London, in West London.
Oh, you are a Londoner.
Mm.
All right.
Born
Okay.
and bred.
Okay.
Born and bred. You can't kick me out. They've tried.
All right. Well, lovely to talk to you both. Okay.
And you, Valerie. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Well, there you go, folks. That was Valerie Leon. Oh, my heavens. We made it happen.
And a lot of personality. She was a lot of fun throughout the course of this chat. It's always interesting when you talk to people who've done Bond films quite a ways in the past, how, those memories have kind of crystallized into a few stories. But, Valerie was more than happy to tell us about these anecdotes she remembered about her time shooting both The Spy Who Loved Me and Never Say Never Again, but brought a lot of personality to this interview, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And it's it is interesting because we spend a lot of time thinking about these films, these spy movies that we love, in this case, The Spy Who Loved Me, and Never Say Never Again, although I use the term love for Never Say Never Again, loosely for some, I'm sure. We spend a lot of time thinking about them, but a lot of these actors that come through these films, they're only on set for 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, or something like that, which is certainly the case for The Spy Who Loved Me, a little less so for Never Say Never Again. So there isn't that much to tell sometimes for some of these films, but Valerie had quite the experience on both films, so I'm glad we can get into it. But what I was actually more surprised about is how influential those high karate adverts were on her career that eventually led her down the route of being in Bond in the first place. I actually thought she'd be more iconic and known for the Bond films, but really she gets, people come up to her more about these high karate adverts.
Which are not something I'm aware of. I don't think they were a thing over here.
Well, you don't even wear aftershave. You stink.
I know. I am now going to try to hit up the pawn shops and the thrift stores to try to find old bottles of high karate.
I'll see if I can find one for you for the next time you come to England, and we can We can put some high karate on you and take you about town. And if those adverts are to be believed, you will be irresistible.
I mean, I guess that's like the Axe body spray of the past.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I
But
mean,
we call it Lynx, but yeah, that's fine.
sure. Valerie did not give it the best of reviews,
No.
so I don't know that I should be running out to get it.
No, and also you're taken, so you probably shouldn't be opening those gates.
Yeah, why am I doing this? Uh-oh,
I mean, it's nice to be wanted from time to time, so there is that, I guess.
Pull up.
That's the problem. But what did you want to sort of bring up about this interview?
Well, I thought it was really interesting to talk to her about her experience in Sardinia shooting The Spy Who Loved Me, which you think, you're young, you're beautiful, you're in Sardinia. What is the exciting life of being an actor in a Bond movie like at that point in time in 1976, probably when she's shooting this? And her talking about how she was very shy, did not go out much, and that's one of her regrets, is that she didn't kind of embrace those experiences then, because you look back on them now and go, oh my God, like, I had it all. I had the world in the palm of my hand, and I didn't really embrace it the way that maybe I now wish I had of as I get older.
But then, conversely on that topic, you're an actor who, in her career was still quite young.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to come on the set and be a right diva and throw her toys out the pram. She was just coming in to do her job and didn't want to make any enemies. So of course she sort of got on with it, kept her head down, did her work.
And I mean, but that what she was talking about even extends to outside of work. After they wrapped the day, she was not out there, trying to party with the crew or having those experiences in Sardinia that she maybe wishes she had now. But, it's just interesting. It reminded me a lot of Luciana Paluzzi. And I mentioned this in the interview, that, when she was shooting Thunderball in the Bahamas in the 1960s, she was going back to her trailer or her, hotel because she had a young child to look after.
And given how old we both feel now, if we were to end up on a Roger Moore Bond set today, do you think you'd be going out in the evening to hang out with Roger Moore?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I think actually everyone listening would be like, yes, Scott, duh.
I mean, I am not a big party person at all. I've never have been. But if you are placing me on a location and saying, do you want to go listen to Roger Moore tell stories over the course of an evening, I would be there.
I always remember that story Vijay Amritraj told us a couple of years back on the show about, like, he was out to dinner with Roger Moore, and Roger Moore was telling a story, holding court, as he is wont to do. And in mid-story, he whipped his top off, hopped in the pool, did the lap, got out the pool, put his shirt back on, and finished his story.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I think I would have gone to that.
Well, I like how Roger Moore, he's presented with a role that is going to elevate your status well through the stratosphere, and wasn't, transformed into a monster because of it. Seems like someone who embraced the fun of it and tried to make it fun for other people as well. Which, there's a lot of actors out there in the world who you give them a role that sends their level of awareness in society through the roof, and they really struggle to manage that and can become quite unpleasant. And it seems like Roger Moore was just like, oh, well, now it's my job to make the party fun for everyone around me.
And for all intents and purposes, every report I've ever read, every person we've ever spoken to, says he did.
Yeah, like Valerie, you asked her which Bond she, had more fun with, Roger Moore or Sean Connery, and she said Roger Moore, always Roger Moore.
And I think everyone listening was like, yeah, that tracks with what we know. And it is interesting, like the ego that you could get as James Bond, as the man everyone wants to be, and the man every woman wants to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And some other actors maybe did let it get to their head a bit more and became perhaps a bit more insular, but wanted other things. Whereas I think Roger Moore was happy to hold court, and I think that pivots me over to Never Say Never Again, because I think Sean Connery reacted to being Bond a bit differently.
Yeah,
I think he was clearly a man who loved women, and women loved him.
They did indeed.
And it's one of the things Valerie was very keen to talk about is, like, she had a lot of fun with Roger Moore, but Sean Connery was her Bond.
Right.
Like, she was very happy to be acting with Sean Connery. And you go back to Barbara Carrera, another interview we did years ago now, who worked on the same film as Valerie, Never Say Never Again. And, she was offered a part in Octopussy, a smaller part, turned that down to be in Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery because she wanted to be with Sean Connery. And I guess that's sort of like, much as it may have been more fun to be around Sean Connery, there was this pull, this magnetic pull of Sean. And it's probably one of the reasons why we all still talk about him. Roger Moore is the fun Bond. We all know this. But when we think of the Bond, we think of Sean.
And also, apparently, it's the hairy chest. That was also the draw.
I was very happy to hear that as a man who has a love rug himself.
I'm more of a Roger Moore.
Like a slip and slide, is it?
That's right. Yeah.
Don't oil Cam up. You'll lose him in a heartbeat. He'll just
That's right.
fly out.
Don't hug me after you've oiled me up. I'll just fly out of your arms.
And yet I keep trying.
I know. Please stop. That's why I keep putting more oil
It's
on.
like trying to grab a piggy. It's like just keeps getting away. Keep getting away. Yeah, but I was so glad to speak to Valerie and sort of bring those stories about two different Bond films together, because there are so few people that can say they've been in two Bond films as different characters. Literally, I think it's only a handful of actors.
Yeah.
Martin Beswick, Valerie Leon, Jodon Baker,
Maud Adams.
I mean, there's some background actors I'm sure you can pick out, but like I'm talking like big main cast type stuff. Maud Adams.
Sure. Yeah, like Shane Rimmer's been there for the long haul. But
I'm sure there's some films we haven't even spotted Shane Rimmer in at this point, but he's probably there.
He's the new Bond. Denis Villeneuve is about to announce it any day.
Oh.
Which would be
right.
quite a feat, because Shane Rimmer has been gone for a little while now.
Well, he did die at the end of No Time to Die, so maybe Shane Rimmer is the perfect actor to play Bond going forward.
He has no time to die.
he's run out.
That's right.
And so I'm glad to have another interview where someone can actually chart those two things, and also like talking about the production of Never Say Never Again, which every time we've done a Never Say Never Again interview and spoken with someone involved in the production, it's been mixed. It's been like, yeah, it was great doing it. Perhaps a bit of tension, perhaps a little bit fraught on the set. I didn't get too much of the sense of that from Valerie. Seemed like she had a pretty good run of it, but she was kept around a lot.
She did say it was an unhappy production.
Yeah.
And she enjoyed her scenes with Sean Connery, but I think the atmosphere around her was, it kind of gave off that, that kind of whiff of, we've got a lot of conflict going on this one.
And also, like, by that point, 1983, she'd done more films. She'd been around more production, so she was getting a better sense of the actual vibe of everything. So yeah, it is interesting to get that sort of like, that sort of, well, only these people were there. Like,
yeah.
We can theorize and talk about, the funny Roger Moore stories that we could have experienced if we were there, but I'm so glad we get to sort of catalog is the wrong word, but like, treasure these stories and preserve these stories, I think is the important word, because Valerie's never done a podcast before. This is the only time you're ever going to hear her on a podcast talking about James Bond. And let's not forget, I know you want to talk about Pink Panther in a second, and we'll get to that, but she did like 7 carry-on films, as well as the Bonds. Massive career. A lot of people will be tuning into this wanting to hear from Valerie, and I'm glad we can provide that, because we're here celebrating The Spy Who Loved Me, and this is a big part of it, and she played a part in the history of a film we both love.
Yeah, and it's, you mentioned getting to work with 2 Bonds, but also getting to work with Peter Sellers on a Pink Panther movie, and his last...
Technically 3 Bonds.
Yeah, of course, because Casino Royale 67, yeah. And, this was the last Pink Panther film, Revenge of the Pink Panther, that Peter Sellers did, because obviously they reused footage of him in Trail of the Pink Panther following that film, but this is the last one where he's present. But even then, when she's talking about these stories about how he wasn't well, and they had to work around him being in quite poor health at this point towards the end of his life, was interesting, because you watch the sequence and it's pretty seamless. It's a lot of fun. It's her as a dominatrix chasing him around with a whip, and it delivers the kind of comedy you'd expect from that premise. But just from talking to her, get the sense it was a little more complex in terms of actually filming that sequence, just because of having to work around Peter Sellers at that point in his life.
Yeah, and I having watched that scene, it's seamless. You can't tell.
Yeah, no, you can't. No.
Credit to Blake Edwards there, I think, as well. But yeah, we like talking to the filmmakers of contemporary films, of course we do. But there's a magic to talking about some of these films that we've grown up loving, and talking to some of these people that have like left images and distinct memories with us. And I'm glad that Valerie can add to this catalogue of like great people that we have spoken to over the years. I'm so glad we got to talk to her.
Yeah, and she had a great sense of humor, a very like like a witty sense of humor, and I did laugh at the part where you asked her about what brings you back to these conventions. Money.
There was someone else we had on years ago who sort of had the same answer. Or I was like talking this like wistful, like really optimistic view of conventions, and they were like, I don't really get it.
Yeah, it was Nancy Kovac.
Oh,
we talked to her about the silencers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like, hey, make $1. Why not?
Yeah, totally.
Well, I don't know if I asked her this exactly right, but I wonder, like, obviously she mentioned the high karate. I wonder what photo she signs the most at conventions.
I would have to think it's Spy Who Loved Me, right?
See, I was thinking it might be the dominatrix outfit.
I don't know that that's remembered as one of the like top tier Pink Panther films, so I don't know that that one would pop to people's mind as much.
And of course, you're wearing it right now, and it does look a bit snug.
I am. Like if she'd appeared in, say, like Shot in the Dark,
Sure.
perhaps. But I think like Revenge is well remembered, but it's not remembered as one of the best of the series.
Well, I had a good time when I watched it, and I had a good time with the two films that we spoke about in terms of Bond, and I had an even better time talking to Valerie Leon. So there you go. That's part 1 of the July Who Loved Me. We're back next week with another James Bond interview celebrating The Spy Who Loved Me. Cam, who's up next?
We are talking to Vernon Dobchaff, who played Max Kalba, Jaws' second victim in The Spy Who Loved Me, the man who had his final moments in a phone booth. And, Mr. Dobchaff has appeared in a lot of movies, countless credits. We're going to talk to him not only about Spy Who Loved Me, but also about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and a few other hits along the way.
Yeah, a very interesting man, quite the Renaissance man, quite the savant, a lot of stories, a lot of things. Again, never done a podcast before, another exclusive. Like I'm so glad, again, we get to do this and bring it to you all. Not many men can say they were chomped to death by Richard Keel, and so we get to hear what that was like.
Yeah, we do indeed.
And trust me, I ask. So your mission, folks, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week on Spy Hards as we sit down with Mr. Vernon Dobchev. Promises to be a fantastic time, and I know you'll all enjoy it. And I hope you're also enjoying the July Who Loved Me, the beginning of our 5th birthday celebrations, and there is more to come later in the year as well. If you like what you heard on this episode, please consider supporting us over on our Patreon. You hear about it from time to time. You might be sick of hearing about it, and I understand if you are. And if you can't chip in, that's absolutely fine. I totally get it. I'm glad you get to enjoy the show, and I hope you will. And this show will continue to go out free. But if you have the spare change and you can help support Spy Hards, it does cost us quite a bit of money to keep this show on the air, edited, and out every week. We haven't missed a week in 5 years. Oftentimes doing double or sometimes even triple duty in a week.
Yeah, we have indeed. We are tireless in our efforts to track every spy film ever made.
We were recently referred to as the hardest working podcast.
I'll take it.
I will take that. And I think it's absolutely true, mostly for Cam.
Yeah, yes, please.
The man is very tired. So help pay a fund to get him some caffeine pills to keep him awake.
Yes. I am like that old knight at the end of Last Crusade, who you'll hear about next week.
Yes, so that's a lovely teaser. Well done, Cam. So come and join us at patreon.com/spyhards. I look forward to seeing you all there. Great group of people supporting us so far. And we've got a goal that we're not going to tell you about, but we're hoping to hit it this year, a certain number. I'm hoping we can hit it. So your mission, folks, is to help us hit that number. Join us on patreon.com/spyhards. And if you're not going to do that, if you can't, I completely understand. But come and join us online. Come and join the discussion. Talk about Valerie Leon. We're going to be talking about her all week and celebrating her work from Pink Panther to James Bond to high karate. Find us wherever you get your social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards on Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, wherever your social media. We'll see you there. But until next time, folks, I'm opening an OnlyFans page where the only photos you'll find on there are me, topless, wearing dungarees.